All right. Do I deserve fair rates for my work? Fair, professional, reasonable rates? That's a question you may be asking yourself. And here's the truth. You're either feeling deserving of fair and professional rates or you're not. Today, I'm going to talk about the rates you deserve, why you're not getting them, and how you can identify and mitigate limiting beliefs that are getting in your way. Now, there's a lot to cover in this video, and to sum it up, I've created a rates worthiness worksheet, and you can download that in the description or show notes below. Let's start with the question, do I deserve professional rates for my work? I didn't ask, do I want professional rates? Everybody wants them. That's not the question. The question is, do you feel you're deserving of reasonable, fair, professional rates? It's a yes or no question. You either feel you deserve professional rates or you don't. The easiest answer to the question is yes. If you feel like you're deserving, if you've been training for a number of months or years, and you and your coach agree that you can produce a professional product, then yes, you're deserving of professional rates. The second answer, no, you feel unworthy of professional rates, is a little bit trickier and breeds another question. Why not? Why don't you feel like you're deserving? And to this question, I think there are three possible answers. Number one, you have no care in the world to be a pro. You just want to have fun and be a hobbyist. That's great. I think everybody can and should benefit from a fun hobby. And if that's the way you look at voiceover or writing code or graphic design or woodworking or whatever it is, then God bless you. I think you should do that for a fun hobby. And if you can make a few extra bucks on the side, nobody gets hurt. If it brings you joy and it adds to the richness of your life, then you should do it. We don't need to optimally monetize everything we do in life. If you want to be a hobbyist, then charge what you think the work is worth to you and be done with it. Have fun. Number two, you're untrained or undertrained and you can't consistently produce work to compete on a professional level. You approach this as a business and you want to do it like a pro, but you just haven't developed your skills enough yet to compete at least semi-consistently and win semi-consistently on a pro level. And this too has a pretty obvious answer. Get trained with a reputable coach. If you don't have the chops yet to compete, then train to get the chops. Thinking you're going to take an 8-week course or, God forbid, a weekend webinar or, watch a few YouTube videos and be able to compete with folks that have been training for years and decades is just a waste of time and money. If you want to become a professional, and I'm not saying everybody has to, but if that's your goal, then you should plan on training for months, if not years, to get baseline comfortable and competent and be able to compete with the pros. Coaching is key, and in voiceover and in just about every other field, the elite talent in that space continue to get coaching. Why would you, as a beginner or an intermediate, not get coaching yourself? If you're not consistently getting better, you're getting worse. And that's true. It's not just something I made up. Because if everybody around you is getting better and you're not, compared to them, you're getting worse. The single thing that will affect your ability to compete on a pro level and to command pro rates is your ability to hone your craft. And number three, you're well trained and can compete with the pros, but for whatever reason, you don't believe that you can command pro rates. Again, the question is, why not? And again, this question has, I think, three possible answers. Number one, upon further reflection, when you really think about it, it turns out you're not all that confident in your training. Again, obvious answer. Confidence comes from preparation, and if you're not confident, it means you don't feel prepared. Get trained up. Number two, you feel like you're too new to command professional rates. I hear this one a lot. Again, back to the same question. Do I feel confident in my training? If you do, charge pro rates. If you don't, get trained up. Assuming you are well trained, at least at a baseline, then I'm new is a hogwash excuse not to charge pro rates. What being new likely does mean is while you are absolutely trained to be able to compete for some of the work, you're not necessarily trained and experienced enough to do all of the work. For example, Let's say you've gotten your initial training. You've trained for several months, maybe even over a year. You got your pro demos ready to go, and you're out there trying to compete for work. You may not yet be ready to compete. In fact, you're likely not yet ready to compete for, let's say, a national commercial, right? But I'll bet you're able to compete for a local or a regional spot, or an explainer video, or a product demo, or a whiteboard video. Rather than quoting and accepting a crappy rate for highly competitive work where you're going to be competing with the best in the business, then at least quote a fair and professional rate for work that you are qualified for. Those explainer videos, the whiteboards, the corporate narrations, the local and regional TV and radio ads, the social media ads. In other words, fish in a smaller pond. Now, Paulie, you say, wait a minute, there's a lot less work in the smaller ponds.
Oh, hell no!
That's the fallacy. That's the myth. The fact is, that's where the majority of the work is. The corporate work, the explainers, whiteboards, product demos, product launches, medical narration, technical narration, e-learning work. They're all found in much smaller ponds than, let's say, national commercial work, right? Now, some people, and I exclude myself from this, consider it not the most sexy work around, but here's the thing. It pays pro rates when you're working with pro clients, and the check's usually clear. Now, it's true, in the smaller ponds, a larger proportion of that work comes from clients who are not necessarily professional. They don't necessarily do it every day. They don't necessarily know what pro rates are or why they're paying those pro rates. And for that work, that's what the hobbyists are for, and that's why I support hobbyists. They deliver a really valid function for our business. But be warned, even in the big ponds, even sometimes in the highly competitive, sexy work, there are still occasionally lowballers. So no matter what size pond you're fishing in, you still need, at the end of the day, to be able to stand up for your value, know your worth, and command a pro rate. And the third answer to why don't I feel like I deserve pro rates is, I don't know, I just don't. And this is the trickiest answer of all. So first of all, if that is your honest answer, then I applaud you for your honesty. You didn't try to BS yourself with, well, I'm too new. You were honest enough to admit that you're not exactly sure why you don't deserve pro rates. But if this is you, chances are you've got one or more limiting beliefs. What are limiting beliefs? Limiting beliefs are beliefs about yourself or about the world, your worldview, that severely restrict you in some significant way. And limiting beliefs are almost always either one of two things. One, they're false. It's just a BS story that we tell ourselves and has no basis in reality. Or two, it's irrelevant. Maybe there's some kernel of truth in there somewhere, but in the end, it doesn't matter. You can overcome it. Now, limiting beliefs typically focus on our identity, who we believe ourselves to be, or they focus on our view of the world, our worldview. Now, at one point, I talked to 69 voice actors in 75 days, and I heard a lot of limiting beliefs, like, I'm an artist, I'm not a business person. That usually means I'm uncomfortable asking for money. I don't like patting myself on the back. That usually means I'm not grounded in the value of the service that I provide. Well, I can't charge that. I only spent a little bit of time on the work. That means I'm only accustomed to trading my time for money and not my impact. Many limiting beliefs focus, as we said, on the self. And one way to sort of minimize or to be able to reframe those limiting beliefs that focus on the self is to flip the script and focus on the client, on the person that you're serving. In other words, stop making it about you. I'm uncomfortable asking for money becomes this person is grateful for the value of the problem that I solved for them and is willing to pay me appropriately. I'm not grounded in the value of the problem I solve and the service I provide becomes I am an artist who solves a real, tangible problem for people and provides value through the solving of that problem, and it's one that people cannot solve for themselves. The more value that impact has far beyond the time that I put into the work. Now, author Brené Brown, who I'm a huge fan of, she says that shame is the gremlin who says, "You're not good enough." She also says that shame is the voice in our head that awakens imposter syndrome and keeps us from taking action. Shame also asks us, well, who do you think you are? Well, on one hand, you've got, "You're not good enough." And on the other hand, you've got, "Who do you think you are?" And there's no room in between. You can't win. Shame kills our vulnerability. And without vulnerability, we lack the courage to be able to be a change maker, both for other people, but more importantly, for ourselves. If you're not feeling deserving, if your self-worth and self-image are tied up in worthiness issues, then chances are shame has murdered your vulnerability and your capacity for self-improvement, leveling up your life, self-validation, personal development, professional development, and more. If you're struggling with asking for fair, reasonable professional rates, and you're fairly confident that your level of training commands them, then I strongly urge you to dig in and do the hard work of digging in to your feelings of unworthiness. Recognizing and working through limiting beliefs is hard work. But if you're going to be a pro in this business or really in any other, you've got to begin to challenge yourself to do the hard inner work, because business is tough stuff and it's going to punch you in the mouth. And if you have limiting beliefs that are already holding you back, you're going to be less able to take those punches when they come. It's also one of the biggest reasons I love being a creative professional, much less a voice actor, because every day this business challenges me to deal with some really uncomfortable shit. Well, maybe not every day, but a lot of days. And it makes me a better person. It makes me a better business person. I think it makes me kinder and, as George Bush said, gentler. Yeah, you should have seen who I was before. We cover limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome and shame and lots more limiting beliefs in our VO Freedom Master Plan. In fact, it's called Module 3. It's our longest and biggest module because if we don't have our mind right, it affects everything that we do in the voiceover business. For more information on the VO Freedom Master Plan, click the link if you're watching us on YouTube in the description below. If you're listening to us on the podcast, then click that link in the show notes. Also, to get my Move, Touch, Inspire newsletter, which comes out every Thursday for creative entrepreneurs, for voice actors, click that link in the description or show notes below as well. As always, I'm super grateful for your support. Thank you for being on this journey with me, and we will see you next week.